You know when you go to watch a movie and you kind of think, hey, this sort of looks like something I might have watched when I was a kid, but then within the first 5 minutes you're like, wow, that was way more violent than anything my mom would have let me watch. Yeah, that was Akira for me, but we'll get to all that in a minute. This is Old, New, and Now Playing. Hello and welcome to Old, New, and Now Playing, your time machine through the world of movies. I'm your host, Will Robinson Smith, and if this is your first time joining me, thanks for checking out this channel. Now, Finding Dory comes out today, so I thought this week it would be fun to do an animation series, and so, of course, we started with Dumbo earlier in the week, and I had intended for this review to actually drop on Wednesday, but life happens, it didn't quite work out that way, so we're doing a double dose Friday, and we're going to do both my reviews of Akira earlier in the day, and a little bit later on, I'll have my review of Finding Dory. But before we whiz off to the dystopian future of 2019, let's take a look at our own future of movies with our movie news segment, The Rundown.
Say it. Don't you say it.
You left.
Come on!
We've got two biopics and a superhero movie to talk about on today's rundown, so let's dive right in. First off, in a Deadline exclusive, the fellows behind last year's Cold War film Bridge of Spies, they being Steven Spielberg, Matt Charman, and Mark Platt, are getting ready to tackle another war era, Vietnam. This film will focus on legendary broadcaster Walter Cronkite and his relationship with the Vietnam War. Cronkite had visited the country in 1965 in a very choreographed trip, but it was his return in 1968 which drastically altered his perception of the war. It's unknown if Spielberg will be able to direct the project himself. His next film, The BFG, is hitting theaters on July 1st, and he is getting ready to start shooting on his next big-budget sci-fi film, Ready Player One, with Ben Mendelsohn, Ty Sheridan, and Olivia Cooke. On top of that, he is set to work on an adaptation of the 1997 book, The Kidnapping of Edgardo Mortera, which is the story about a young Jewish boy in 1858 who was stolen away from his family to be raised as a Christian. And he has said he will return to direct Harrison Ford in the 5th Indiana Jones movie. Would I like to see Spielberg in the director's chair on this one? Well, of course, but whatever his involvement, I think it's really important that they're doing this slice of Cronkite's life, and I'm really excited to see how this project turns out. Next up, in a Variety exclusive, Zac Efron is in talks to join the P.T. Barnum biopic titled The Greatest Showman on Earth. The project has been in the development stages since 2009, with Hugh Jackman starring as Barnum, the world-famous showman who created the three-ring Barnum and Bailey circus. Michael Gracie is set to direct the project. He also has two other big biopics on his plate, Rocket Man, a biopic about Elton John, and The Muppet Man, about the life of Jim Henson. I thought Efron showed some nice comedic chops in Neighbors and Neighbors 2, so he'll probably be a good fit for this project, and I think pairing him with Hugh Jackman is going to be a really interesting thing to see on camera. And finally, in another Deadline exclusive, Community star and stand-up comedian Donald Glover is in talks to join Spider-Man Homecoming. Back in 2011, when The Amazing Spider-Man was announced, fans of Glover threw his name into the mix with the hashtag Donald Glover for Spider-Man Twitter campaign. Glover embraced the idea, but sadly, that wasn't meant to be. It's unknown right now who Glover will be playing, but with Tom Holland already appearing as the webhead in Captain America Civil War, Glover will have to settle for another role. I loved Glover in Community and really liked him in The Martian, but as far as the fans' notion that maybe he could be playing Miles Morales, the new Spider-Man, yeah, I don't buy into all of that, just because we just met our new Spider-Man in the last Marvel film, and so to introduce the notion that we might get another new Spider-Man within that same universe, I think is asking a lot of folks, so yeah, I don't buy into all of that. But hey guys, now that you're all caught up on the news, let's head straight into our main segment, your feature presentation. Akira is a 1988 anime film that is largely given credit for bringing the genre to the Western world. It's based on the manga, or Japanese comic book, of the same name. Both were created by Katsuhiro Otomo, with the manga series running from 1982 through 1990. The movie was groundbreaking at the time for a few reasons. It had a production budget of nearly $10 million, which was a record for an anime film at the time, and it also included about 160,000 single pictures and 327 different colors, 50 of which were created exclusively for this movie to help the night sequences pop. The movie mostly takes place in Neo-Tokyo in 2019, 31 years after a massive explosion causes World War III. It's a dystopian future that explores clashes between punk teenagers, anti-government factions, and the military. It also highlights the construction of a stadium built to host the Olympics. Which is a crazy coincidence considering that Tokyo is hosting the 2020 Olympics in real life. The movie's main character is anti-hero Kaneda. He's the teenage leader of the Capsules, one of the many bike gangs in Neo-Tokyo that gets its kicks from throwing down with other rival gangs. Beyond being influenced by other manga series like Astro Boy, director Katsuhiro Otomo also took inspiration from American films like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Bonnie and Clyde, and Easy Rider. Watching the movie, it seemed like he also took cues from some other films as well. The youthful gang mentality is strikingly similar to Stanley Kubrick's 1971 film A Clockwork Orange. And the way they fight on the motorcycles reminded me a lot of the light cycle battle in the 1982 movie Tron.
Watch it, watch it.
The shift in our main crew's world happens when one of them, an insecure kid named Tetsuo, physically collides with a weirdly aged little kid with psychic abilities. The military swoops in to capture the kid, and they take Tetsuo away as well. Because of this encounter, Tetsuo starts to change in a frightening and bizarre way. The movie also makes a number of references to whoever or whatever the title character Akira is, but keeps it a mystery for much of the film. This is one of the things that I thought the movie did well. It doesn't feel like it needs to really over-explain things. It just gives a brief explanation about how we got to 2019 at the start of the movie, and then bam, we're off to the races. Part of what sucked me into this world was the incredibly detailed animation. Each scene felt like it was really well crafted, and a lot of time was clearly put into adding things that gave the world depth. For example, there's a lot of graffiti throughout the movie, which conveys many of the anti-government feelings harbored by the citizens of Neo-Tokyo. Also, they borrowed a Western technique of recording the actors talking and then animating to that to give it a sense of realism. That said, when I was watching this movie, I did so with the English dubbing, and I think next time I decide to watch it, I'll probably do it with Japanese and just English subtitles, probably because the animation will sync up a lot better with the voices, but also the English voiceover actors, I thought they were kind of weak and really just didn't sell it for me for most of this movie, so that was kind of annoying and a bit of a drawback. I find myself split when thinking about the story. On the one hand, Akira does tell a complex and compelling tale about society, the role of the government, and how far we should push the boundaries of science and power. On the other hand, the story gets weird, and I mean weird, in the last 20 minutes or so, and I was pretty with the movie up until that last chunk, and then I was just like, what? Also, this movie earns its R rating because it gets pretty freaking violent many times throughout the movie and is very liberal with how much blood it shows. It kind of feels like the later Saw movies in that regard, hyper-violence and blood for the sake of shock value. All that being said, I feel like this is a movie that you might get a bit more out of with repeat viewings. I mean, even in just editing this review together and watching some of those scenes over again, I felt like I got more out of them. Is this movie weird? You betcha. Would I recommend it for everyone? Hell no. You should know what you're getting into with this one, but I think if you come at it with an open mind and really allow yourself to get sucked into this world, there is a lot to enjoy here. The animation is really quite spectacular, and while some of the characters do feel a bit two-dimensional, pun intended, you can have a good time getting lost in this world with this group. Overall, I give Akira a 7.5 out of 10. I might readjust my score after seeing it again, but for now I thought it was a decent film. It's visually stunning with an intriguing story, but it lost points with some of the lagging characters and a less than stellar ending. So those are my thoughts on Akira, and as far as watching it, I picked up a copy of the special edition at my local Dimple Records, and I really like this one because it has a lot of features as far as how to watch the film, and you can pause it with the capsule mode, and it tells you what the graffiti in the background means, which I thought, was a nice little footnote in watching the film. But, of course, not all of you guys want to own it, I'm sure, and you can rent it on places like Amazon Video, and I think Vudu has it as well. I don't believe it's on Netflix, but double check. It might have changed since posting this review, so maybe. But if you've seen it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie, and of course, what are some of your favorite anime movies? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And seeing as studios love to bring back old properties, Warner Brothers has been in the process of trying to get a new adaptation of the film off the ground since they acquired the rights in 2008. According to The Hollywood Reporter, last year, WB signed on Marco de Ramirez to pen a new script for the project. To me, that's exciting news for this property because Ramirez was one of the showrunners on the second season of Netflix's Daredevil, which I thought was even better than the first season and had a nice balance of great action and well-rounded characters. That will do it for this episode of Old, New, and Now Playing. Remember, if you ever have a movie-related question you want to have featured on the show, whether it be about movie news or the movie I'm reviewing or just a general movie-related query, you can always tweet at me. My handle is @W_RobinsonSmith. Just use the hashtag #PopTweets so I know it's a question you want to have featured on this show. Or you can always send me an email at oldnewnowplaying@gmail.com. Just put PopTweets question in the subject line. And guys, I'll see you very soon with my review of Finding Dory.